The street where it all began didn't appear on any map. It was a crooked alley, squeezed between old buildings that seemed to lean forward, as if listening to what happened inside. At night, the wind blew through it like a lament, carrying a faint smell of rust and rotten wood. But the strangest detail was another. No one who passed by remembered seeing the shop before. It was impossible to ignore it. The display window was always illuminated by a dead yellow light that flickered slowly, as if breathing. On the sign, written with letters that looked hand-scratched, one could read, "Shadow Collector, Rare Antiques." The name itself was already an invitation to fear. That night, Lucas, curious by nature and hungry for stories to use on his channel, spotted the shop while looking for locations to film new videos. Something in the fogged glass of the window drew him in, as if there were movement inside. But when he got closer, he saw only darkness. A darkness so dense it seemed to absorb the streetlight itself. The little bell above the door rang when he entered, but the sound was muffled, as if vibrating underwater. The shop was organized chaos. Crooked shelves packed with old objects, clocks, photographs, candles, cracked porcelain dolls, and maps burned on the edges. But there was something else, a sense of presence, as if someone were there, hidden among the shadows, observing every breath he took. Lucas tried to rationalize. Maybe it was just the smell of mold or the dim lighting, but then he noticed something that froze his blood. There was no dust on any of the objects. They all gleamed as if they had been cleaned minutes earlier. That was when he heard the voice. Looking for something specific? Lucas turned so fast he stumbled. A man stood behind the counter, though Lucas was absolutely sure the place had been empty when he walked in. His face was narrow, pale. The eyes, deep, dark, almost liquid. They didn't reflect light. They devoured it. I'm just looking," Lucas murmured. The man smiled, a thin smile stretched too wide. "In this shop, no one enters just to look. Every visitor carries a shadow inside them, and shadows always look for a place to rest." The temperature dropped instantly. Lucas felt something crawl beneath his skin. The shopkeeper leaned forward as if studying his soul. "Maybe you'll find here what you should have never sought. Or perhaps something here will find you." The bell rang again, even though no one had entered or left. And it was in that moment Lucas realized he was trapped in something much bigger than simple curiosity. A story had found him, not the other way around. He pulled out his phone to record some shots of the shop for an intro. He lifted the camera and zoomed in on the nearest shelf. What appeared on the screen wasn't there in real life. Between the objects, there was a dark figure, a human silhouette, motionless, standing behind an old clock. Lucas lowered the phone immediately and looked at the shelf. Nothing. When he lifted the phone again, the shadow was closer. The air grew colder. "Light interference," he whispered, trying to convince himself. But for the first time in his life, he didn't believe his own excuse. The owner remained still, as if waiting. Lucas kept filming. The figure disappeared from the screen, then reappeared suddenly, this time behind him. The phone slipped from his hand. The lights flickered. The floor trembled subtly, like the heartbeat of something colossal sleeping beneath the boards. A whisper formed in the air, too deep to be human and too soft to understand. Lucas stepped back but bumped into something. He turned, thinking it was the counter, but it was a shelf that had been nearly 3 meters away before. The shop was shifting. The shadows moved without obeying physics. "Do you feel it?" the owner asked, almost excited. "The shop has recognized you." Before Lucas could respond, the clock behind him started ringing. Slowly at first, then faster, faster, until the sound became a mix of chimes and groans. The shadows climbed the walls like living things. Lucas ran to the door, but it was locked from the inside. The handle was hot, as if held by something burning. The shop groaned. Yes, groaned, like a breathing creature. Then the shadow appeared for real, not on the screen, tall, twisted, with a face shifting every second as if trying to imitate Lucas but not yet knowing how to finish it. But the eyes were perfect. They were his. The creature tilted its head. Lucas felt his own shadow move on the floor, trying to detach from him. Then everything stopped. Lights, sound, the creature. The shopkeeper clapped once. "First manifestation complete," he murmured. "Now it knows who you are." And Lucas understood. Something inside that shop was awakening, and it had chosen him. Lucas leaned against the door, breathless, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. The shadow still seemed to watch his every move, even after freezing in the middle of the shop like a statue made of liquid darkness. The owner, however, looked completely calm, almost satisfied. What is that?" Lucas whispered, pointing with a trembling hand. The man tilted his head like a teacher evaluating a student's performance. "She is just one among many, a lost shadow, part of something much bigger, something this shop has collected for a very, very long time." Lucas tried the door again, but it felt like it had become part of the wall. The wood pulsed beneath his fingers like living flesh. "It's no use," the owner said. "The shop only lets out those it doesn't want. And you, oh, you've already been chosen." He walked through the narrow corridors, running his fingers across objects that seemed to tremble at his touch, as if afraid of their own master. "All the shadows you see here," he continued, "belong to someone. They aren't ghosts, not exactly. They are fragments of fears, traumas, sins, regrets. Every person who enters this place leaves a shadow behind, even if they don't notice. Some come willingly. Others are ripped away." Lucas felt his stomach twist. "Why?" The man smiled. "Because shadows tell stories. Stories the world tries to forget. Stories I collect." He opened an old drawer, revealing dozens of small glass vials. Inside them, something moved, dark stains like living smoke. "People come to me looking for objects with history, but they don't know the real value lies in the shadow they carry." Lucas struggled to breathe. "And that shadow that imitated my face?" The smile vanished. For a moment, the owner looked serious, worried even. "That one is different. That one wasn't born here. She came because of you." Lucas felt a chill creep up his spine. "What do you mean, because of me?" "You're a storyteller, Lucas. But have you ever noticed how many of the stories you tell seem to find you before you even research them? How many times have you dreamed of things that later appeared in places you visited? How many times have you heard footsteps behind you while filming, even though you were alone?" Lucas's eyes widened. He had never told anyone that. Never told anyone he sometimes felt his stories took shape before being written. "You're a natural magnet," the owner continued. "Some shadows are drawn to people like you. Shadow isn't the absence of light. It's the presence of something that wants to exist, something that needs a form. And yours found a way." Tears welled up in Lucas's eyes. "What does it want from me?" The owner took a deep breath. "It wants to be born." In the distance, the shadow smiled with his face, perfectly, for the first time. After that revelation, the shop seemed to awaken completely. Every object began making its own noise, clocks beating in different rhythms, paintings whispering incomprehensible words, dolls turning their heads slowly as if searching for the nearest source of fear. The nearest source was Lucas. The shadow, now wearing his face, began to move again, this time with slow, elegant steps, as if learning how to walk in the body it intended to steal. Lucas backed away until he hit the wall, but the wood yielded under his weight like a membrane. He nearly fell through it, as if the place was trying to swallow him. "The more fear you feel," the owner explained, "the stronger she becomes. Shadow is accumulated emotion, and yours is old." "This is insane," Lucas shouted, though his voice sounded weak, as if something were draining his strength away. The shadow stepped forward. When it smiled, its teeth were sharper than a human's. It was a cruel, distorted, perfect, and wrong version of him. The owner lifted an object from the counter, a small black metal amulet. "This can delay her, but not stop her. Nothing stops something that wants to be born." Lucas tried to run, but the floor opened beneath him like a gigantic mouth. He jumped aside, landing between two shelves full of old photographs. Every photo began bleeding from the eyes. Lucas swallowed a scream. The shadow contorted and swept through the corridor like dense smoke. Light died around it. Suddenly, Lucas heard whispers coming from the very shadows on the floor. Voices, voices of people, desperate people, people begging for help. "You hear them?" the owner asked, still calm. "They are the ones who tried to face their own shadow and failed." Lucas stumbled backward. His legs shook. The shadow caught up to him and touched him for the first time. The touch was deep ice burning like solid cold. Instantly, Lucas saw flashes. His memories twisted. Traumas. Things he tried to forget. Things he never told anyone. The shadow was rummaging through his past, selecting what it would use to shape its final version. Lucas fell to his knees. "Stop. Please. Stop." But it didn't stop. For the first time, the owner raised his voice. "If she completes the process, you'll be just another object of the shop. Just another shadow in a bottle." Lucas felt his body grow heavy. His own shadow began detaching from his feet, rising like black smoke. He tried grabbing it, but his hands passed through it like oil. "It's starting," the owner murmured. "She's replacing you." And under the dim light, Lucas saw something horrifying. The shadow was solidifying, gaining muscle, skin, texture. It was turning into him. Lucas realized he had only two options: fight or vanish. The owner watched like a curator admiring a masterpiece nearing completion. And in a way, that's exactly what it was. "How do I stop it?" Lucas screamed. "You don't," the owner said, smiling. "At best, you delay it." Lucas grabbed the amulet. As soon as his fingers touched the black metal, a wave of heat shot up his arm, as if something were trying to communicate with him. The object pulsed, vibrating like an artificial heart. The shadow, his dark version, paused for a moment, recognizing the amulet. Then it growled. Lucas ran through the corridors, knocking down objects that cried, screamed, and whispered as they fell. The shadow followed, moving too quickly, appearing always too close. When it finally reached him, Lucas raised the amulet. A dark aura enveloped the creature, making it writhe and scream with a sound not of this world. But it didn't hurt her, only held her back for a moment. "The amulet doesn't destroy," the owner explained, approaching slowly. "It returns the shadow to its original owner, meaning you." Lucas understood. He would have to face it inside himself. His fears, his guilt, his shame. "I can't," he said weakly. "I can't do this." "Then she will be born," the owner said, satisfied. The shadow lunged. Lucas raised the amulet, but pointed it at himself. The energy hit him full force. The floor vibrated, shelves collapsed, lights burst into sparks. Lucas saw everything: his childhood, his worst moments, nights of anxiety, the fears he buried deep, the stories he created, and that sometimes seemed to watch him back. The shadow roared, trying to break free, but was pulled back into him like smoke sucked into a vacuum. Lucas screamed, not in pain, but in confrontation. For a few seconds, the entire shop shook as if collapsing. Then, silence. When Lucas opened his eyes, the shadow was gone. He stood holding the amulet, sweating and gasping. "You did it," the owner said. "But you didn't win. You only delayed." Lucas tried to breathe, but noticed something strange. His shadow on the floor flickered, as if agitated, as if angry. The owner tilted his head. "She's inside you now, and one day, she will come out again." The door finally opened on its own, as if the shop, having completed its ritual, had lost interest in him. Lucas staggered outside. The night air hit his lungs like a punch. For a moment, he thought he was free. But shadows don't release that easily. The owner watched him from the doorway. "Come back when you feel she's trying to escape," he said calmly. "Or she will return here on her own." The door closed slowly behind him. Lucas ran. ran until the street looked like another city, until the real world seemed to return. When he finally got home, he locked every door, turned off the lights, and tried to sleep. But he couldn't, because something moved in the corner of the room. Something small, something that shouldn't be there. His shadow was delayed by 1 second. When he raised his arm, the shadow raised it afterward. When he turned his head, the shadow turned later. Worse, its face was no longer his. It was the face he saw in the shop. Complete. Perfect. Awake or asleep, Lucas began hearing whispers coming from the floor. I almost was born. I almost became you. Next time, I will. Lucas tried to ignore it, tried praying, tried running, but the shadow followed him everywhere. Sometimes reflected in store windows, sometimes behind him in recordings, sometimes standing quietly in the bedroom corner, staring without blinking. One night, while editing a new video for his channel, he noticed something terrifying. In the reflection of the computer screen, his shadow was smiling, but he wasn't. That was when Lucas realized he had to return to the shop, not to destroy the entity, but to understand why it had chosen him. As he walked down the dark street, the voice whispered behind him, "Part 2 begins now. And this time, I finish." The alley appeared again. The shop was lit, the bell rang, and the story was far from over. He thought he had won, but shadows don't lose. They wait.